recording and the streaming because for all of our meetings, both the council and the committee, obviously we are going to have tech issues from time to time. This is something that we have discussed quite a bit within the administration. So whenever it happens, I think it's important to call it out, to say what's going on. But also, anytime you're chairing a meeting, you have to do an analysis of whether we have meaningfully degraded access to the public that they would have otherwise expected. Access in this case will almost always mean participation in the meeting that they would have had a right to expect. What's going on right now is the Granicus server, there's a reset this morning, and so I don't know exactly what's happening, but it's not streaming live to the website or to YouTube. Neither of those platforms allows interaction with the council meeting. So neither of those would allow the public to speak in public comment. The Zoom meeting is the Teams meeting is on and recording, and we have not traditionally, unless we've created some special access at the council, we've not traditionally taken public comments via the digitally anyways. So the meeting is being recorded. So other than a delay, the folks that would watch this streaming will have the same access they usually have. They just won't have it in this moment right now. Everybody clear on that? Then I am going to call the meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll? I'm sorry, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk now please call the roll?
Councillor Ledeen. Councillor Van Sickle. Councillor Moffett.
Here.
Councillor Sweeney. Here. Councillor Fennessy. Councillor Elm. Vice President Ludwig. Councillor Herrick. Councillor Johnson. And President Grasky.
We have a quorum. Thank you again, councilors, for your delay. We are all present.
All right, item 4.1 is the business of the October 15th, 2024 regular council meeting minutes.
The motion is by Councillor Elm, second by Councillor Herrick. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
And item 6.1 is report from Mayor Payne.
Okay, good evening again, councilors. The most significant thing in front of us right now, certainly the thing that's going to dominate my to-do list for the next several weeks, is going to be our legislative agenda. Obviously, our election is behind us. I want to echo again my congratulations to our clerks department, as well as all of the election workers that worked to carry out what looks to be a near perfect election within the city of Superior. Obviously, we're going to be analyzing. We're probably going to find a mistake here or there, but if we haven't found it yet, it's likely to be a pretty minor mistake. So I'm really grateful for that work. But in this life we lead together, it is really a case of out of the frying pan and into the fire, because with the election over, people have been elected. And so we're going to get to work on our state and national legislative agenda. The state agenda is the most urgent. I've already had this conversation with the department heads. This 2025 will be a biennial budget year. For those that are not familiar, the state of Wisconsin creates two-year budgets, unlike our annual budgets. And this is one of those years. So the governor is going to submit his budget to the legislature sometime in what we'll call the early spring. That could be as early as the first weeks of February. So typically in the late fall and around and after the holidays, Governor Evers has toured the state. He's deployed cabinet secretaries to get feedback on how he should build that budget. Then he gives a budget address, again, immediately upon releasing the budget. That'll be somewhere around February. And then the legislature will take up the budget, namely the Joint Finance Committee of the legislature. It appears, in fact, it's locked in. Republicans have retained control of both houses of the state legislature, so there will be divided government again, but it's closer, and there's going to be a lot of negotiation between the governor, between both houses of the legislature, between both parties in both houses of the legislature. It's kind of a free-for-all, but it will result in a budget, and there's quite a few opportunities for folks outside the legislature, read communities like ours, to have an impact on that. All of this is to say, I need to know your goals. If there are things that you think we should be working on legislatively in your next meeting with me, or if you want to send an email, or let me know what you would like us working on as a city. Now, this all pairs pretty neatly with Superior Days. We will set our issues for the 40th Superior Days next Wednesday at, we're going to call it 6 p.m. At where? the old library, the post office, third floor. Yeah. The third floor ballroom. We will set our issues there. Now, the Superior Days issues are not necessarily the city of Superior issues. We share Superior Days with Douglas County, with communities across northern Wisconsin, and those have very unique criteria, namely unique to northern Wisconsin. They are issues that can only be solved by the legislature and issues that we have not been able to solve ourselves. Obviously, there's some overlap there with what might be the municipal issues of the city of Superior, but we are perfectly capable. We all have travel budgets, and we can go and pursue our own legislative agenda independent of Superior Days as well. So I'd encourage you to join Superior Days. The 40th is going to be a blast. I hope that you're going to be there at the issues identification next week, but we can have our own issues as well and advocate for those. And those don't have to be unique to Superior. They can have statewide implications as long as they're benefiting our community. So let me know what you think those issues are, what you think we should be working on. The budget, which is also a policy document, it's not just financial. That's going to be our best shot at it. But whatever we're going to work on in that legislature, they're going to pass most of their agenda here in the first couple of months, and then it's going to really slow down as they go back to their districts. So we have a lot of work to do in Madison in the coming months. Washington, if we think of anything to do, I'll talk to you about in the coming weeks, but we always have a little less of a national agenda than we do a state agenda. Any questions about the state of the world down there? If not, I'll follow up on it at future meetings as well.
All right, item 7.1 is the business of the Human Resources Committee with a meeting held on October 21st. Is there a report from the chair?
I will defer to the vice chair who ran that meeting.
If you could turn your mic on, please, Counselor.
Thank you. I would need just a few minutes to get organized here. I wasn't prepared for this, so
I apologize.
for it.
Can I just ask one question? What is that the third week of February for Superior Days?
Superior Days is February 10th through the 13th. So second week.
Okay, 3.1, we approved an updated job description for the public works superintendent position. Only one small change. They indicate we want written plans to be done. We had a request from the police officer to fill 2 positions, which we voted in the affirmative on that. Any new business? We are in the process of reviewed the community service officer position. And I think that was anything of importance that there are 2 items in that I see that they must require a vote.
No, we have no business from the all of that business, Counselor, is handled only at the Human Resource Committee.
That's fine. Thank you.
I would also let the council know I just approved today the Parks, Rec, and Forestry Director job description, as well as a request to fill that position, will be at the upcoming meeting if anybody's interested in that discussion.
All right, item 7.3 is the business of the Finance Committee with a meeting held on October 10th. Is there a report from the chair?
Yes, thank you. We have 3 items of interest, I think, occurred in the Finance Committee. Number 3.1 is the health insurance renewal. We spent quite some time, as did the Finance Department, as did the Committee of Employees. And so I think we've developed a better product. We've changed insurance companies, health insurance companies. We've also changed the dental. The dental was a change. I think that we've improved that drastically with coverages and depth of the broader reach for Delta. They have a much more wider reach. So I think we've improved both of those. I think our employees will be happy, but we need that for approval. We've also are still working on our policies and procedures, which will take some time. We're not working on them ourselves. We've opted to hire those out and be done. And so that is coming along, but that's a quite an extensive project. We haven't reviewed them for a while. And the other thing is the single audit, and we talked about that and we approved that. So those are the three. The one items that I will need approval on is the hospitalization and the Delta Dental. I know. Up to the clerk. Thank you.
That recommendation is 7.3.1 to approve Medica as a new third-party administrator for the self-insured health plan and switch services for dental insurance from Health Partners to Delta Dental and remain self-funded to maintain cost control and network quality.
To approve. Second.
Motion is by Counselor Herrick, second by Counselor Elm. Counselor Van Sickle.
Thank you. Just a note, I am a member of the Finance Committee. However, I did not attend this meeting, and please make a note of my abstention on this vote. Thank you.
I also have a request from Counselor Fennessy to abstain on this item, so the record will reflect the abstentions of Counselors Fennessy and Van Sickle. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item 7.5 is the business of the Public Safety Committee with a meeting held on October 17th. Is there a report from the chair? Nope. All right, then moving on to reports without recommendations at this time. Are there any further committee or commission reports to be made?
Counselor Ludwig.
Yes, I have a report from the Urban Forestry Tree Board. I have several items here that we are in the process of working on, and my report's a little bit lengthy. Forgive me, but we only meet on a quarterly basis. So Board Member Richard Kaufman reported on the fundraising efforts of the cyclists of Gitche-Gumee Shores. They have raised $3,700 this far for a goal of $30,000 to apply for a matching grant from the International Mountain Biking Association to create a mountain biking master plan for the city of Superior. The grant cycle occurs annually, which allows for the opportunity to apply in 2025. Board Member Kaufman also reported on the mountain bike trail sections near the Millennium Trail, which have been under development since the summer and are currently 90% complete. Board Member Ludwig reported, and that's Jared Ludwig, reported on a meeting with Wisconsin DNR wildlife biologist Greg Kessler, during which was discussed deer harvest statistics and the approval process for special hunting seasons. The conversation also addressed bear hunting, particularly the risks posed by injured bears to public safety. The biologist noted that many nuisance bears are currently euthanized, suggesting that bow hunting could also mitigate this issue. So far, there have been no significant safety incidents related to bow hunting in the Superior Municipal Forest. Board members concurred on the need to review and possibly amend Chapter 86, Article 3 of the city ordinance to encompass additional game species such as bear, turkey, and small game, as well as to clarify hunting boundaries within the municipal forest. It was agreed that the ordinance would be revisited in January meeting for further discussion. Paul Priestley, the wildlife fuels specialist with the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, was invited to the meeting to address the establishment of a cultural fire stewardship initiative in collaboration with the Fond du Lac Band, particularly at Wisconsin Point. Mr. Priestley underscored the critical need for effective fire management and restoration efforts at Wisconsin Point, which include mechanical thinning and invasive species management to restore ecological balance and mitigate wildfire risks. He indicated that in order to initiate the partnership, an official letter from the mayor must be presented to the tribal government for their approval and resolution. The process then involves securing a memorandum of understanding between the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the city, which would ensure liability protection and facilitate access to federal funding. Mr. Priestley pointed out the opportunity to apply for the Reserved Treaty Rights Land Grant Program, a federal funding avenue for projects located within the ceded territory. The board is currently reviewing the $50 per diameter inch tree removal fee charged when a tree is removed from city property for convenience construction. Superintendent Wentland advised the board that the current fee is insufficient. It currently costs the city at least $125, if not more, depending on the tree species, for a 1-inch diameter replacement tree. The board discussed delegating the fee determination to the city forester to accommodate different tree species and sizes, ensuring that the fees accurately reflect the true cost of replacement and removal. The board will revisit this matter at the January meeting, aiming to establish a fee or fees based on the city forester's assessment for tree removal. The board also approved the door hanger, which is given to homeowners upon a new tree being planted in boulevards adjacent to their property. The door hanger addresses the tree species planted, along with maintenance of the tree, including watering, staking, mulching, and pruning. And lastly, Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Superintendent Wentland reported that because of severe drought conditions over the summer and fall, significant watering efforts were implemented to maintain boulevard tree health. In addition, 750 boulevard trees were pruned over the summer, and 15 ash trees were removed due to declining health related to disease caused by emerald ash borers. This fall, 100 new trees were planted, and in the upcoming spring, plans are to plant 40 trees in front of the solar garden, along with additional vegetation. And that is it for my report. Thank you.
Are there questions for the counselor? Not, we can move on. Are there any other special committees or commissions with reports? Counselor Sweeney.
I'll just give a quick report on the golf course. The month of September and October were outstanding months for weather, so consequently they were great months for golf. So I don't know what the final numbers are going to be, but we're going to have a good year at the golf course, and golf has now gone inside. Okay, so they're opening up that if it's not open already. So anybody who wants to maintain their golf, a love of golf, will soon be able to go inside. So they've had a good year. Things worked well. I think on a sad note, we're losing our groundskeeper, but that's the way things go. So they've got a replacement, and I'm sure he'll do a fine job. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further committees or commissions whose chairs would like to report? If not, we can move on to old business.
Item 9.1 is the approval of the 2025 budget.
I can't remember if this got a motion at a previous meeting, so is there a motion? I will entertain a motion to approve the 2025 budget book containing all of the budgets that are in your packet.
Second.
Motion is by Councilor Ledeen, second by Councilor Ludwig. Councilor Moffett.
I believe we still had the public hearing open on it.
I think you're right, and the agenda doesn't actually say that. So if since it's clearly within the scope of the budget itself, why don't we consider that postponed to this point? And that's a motion of privilege that puts us back into the regular rules. So I am going to recognize that the public hearing is open from the last meeting. Would anybody else like to speak in this public hearing? Would anybody, this is the public hearing related to the approval of the 2025 general fund budget. Anybody like to speak in the public hearing? Would anybody like to speak in the public hearing? Okay, then this will be quite a bit more orderly. Now I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing and adopt the budget.
Second.
Okay, the motion is by Councilor Ledeen. That second is by Councilor Moffett. The discussion, councilors, is then on the approval of all of those budgets that are in the current budget book, which is in your packet. There will be more budgets to be added to that budget book, but we're going to approve these tonight and add to this book as the year goes on. Well, I hope we will approve it tonight. Our deadline is Thursday for the general fund. Okay, discussion. Councilor Herrick.
Yeah, I like to amend this with withdrawing, or at least putting separate the employee wage increase.
So what this does in terms of the employee wage increase is it funds employee salaries at a 3% increase. It does not raise their salaries as a matter of policy. What it does is it allows us to fund it at that point, or up to that point, without going over budget. The actual wage increase is set by the Human Resource Committee and then the council. It is a separate vote.
Okay, yeah, the reason why I mentioned that, because I would have to abstain from that part of the budget, so.
For sure. So we'll have an opportunity to do that. You are allowed to vote on the budget at large because,
Okay.
Again, this document will raise nobody's wages.
All right.
Even if even if this is passed tonight as is, wages do not increase unless and until both the Human Resource Committee and then the council agrees to raise them.
All right, thank you.
And that's, as long as we're on the subject, that is worth noting. That will be at the next Human Resource Committee meeting, which I think is next week. And while I stopped short of a full-blown recommendation. I have funded in this budget a 3% wage increase. So obviously that will be the starting point for conversations at the Human Resource Committee. They can approve anything they want. Obviously, you can approve anything you want. If you approve 1%, then we're going to come in under budget on salaries. If you approve 5%, the budget's going to be pretty stressed. And so this is just a guideline for us to start those conversations. It was a deliberate decision, but ultimately that will be, it's just a starting point for that conversation. Okay, further discussions on any item in these budgets? Councilor Fennessy.
I just want to touch on the capital improvement plan budget, and in particular the allocation that we've got for 1.5 million for Connect Superior. And I was just trying to find where in the packet that
it's page 108 of the budget itself.
I don't see where the pages are numbered. There it is. So I wanted to touch on that 1.5 million allocation to Connect Superior. When we were originally sold on this idea, or when we sold it to the idea to the public, we were told that this project is different. This project is different from the many municipality-owned broadband utilities across the country, where many have failed. So many fail across the country because of low take rates, or they get in a position where they just have to start throwing more and more money after this project, and then end up realizing it's a losing proposition, and they end up selling it to the private sector from pennies on the dollar. But we were sold on the idea that this project is different. We were told it's different because it would never require local tax dollars. It would be user supported, and the build out would be funded by grants and federal tax dollars. Up to today, that has remained true. Every bit that we've invested into Connect Superior up till now has all been either grants or federal tax dollars. But now in this budget, we're looking to allocate 1.5 million to Connect Superior, 1.5 million of local tax dollars. We still have yet to hook up a single home, and are already requiring local tax dollars to keep this project moving forward. We're already starting to go down that road that many other municipal broadband utility companies have gone down before, and having to start pouring money into it, our own local money. If we're going to allocate local money to this project, I would much rather first see at least some form of results, some form of household signing up, anything that would point to that this is succeeding. We're heading in the right direction. I have a very hard time allocating money to this project when we have true needs that may not have made it to the top of the priority budgeting list. And probably the biggest one for me that didn't make it hit that threshold to be funded is the lead pipe replacement. And I would rather see us use that 1.5 million to come alongside homeowners that might possibly have to carry the burden of replacing their lead pipes. I would rather see us put that 1.5 aside if there is an opportunity where we can assist the homeowners. And I'm not sure what that looks like, whether that would be a grant or some other kind of program. And I don't think we need to even hammer out the details of what that would look like now. But if we had that money set aside for the homeowners who are going to be forced to replace their lead pipes, and then we can kind of figure that out. So with this, I'd like to make a motion to remove the 1.5 million from Connect Superior and allocate 1.5 million for a new line item assisting homeowners with lead pipe replacement.
The motion is to reduce the 2025 allocation to Connect Superior of 1.5 million to 0. Create a new line item for lead pipe replacements for 1.5 million. Is there a second to that motion? Motion is by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Sweeney. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Herrick.
Yeah, I have a question. You know, we talked about a little bit about, you know, Wisconsin and that going into their budget period. And we talked about a little bit about, you know, the national level. Is it possible to reach out to the national leaders and maybe see if they can do anything for us in regards to this, the pipe situation, like pipe situation?
Yeah,
I know the state's not doing too much, but so can we go a step further and contact, you know, those people in Washington?
That's a complicated question. It's difficult for me to answer right now. I've not looked into, my understanding of the motion is it would fund connections for private homes. So I believe that there is grant funding available to that. I know we've made very good use of the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund ourselves. So it's possible that both the state and federal government would have money. I know that the federal government, the Joe Biden administration, which is now the outgoing administration, did set aside, I think, something $1 or $2 billion for lead pipe replacements, but I don't know any of the details of that program or if it will even still exist under the new administration. So the short answer is there are state and federal grants for water infrastructure. I just can't speak competently on them right now. Councilor Johnson.
Thanks. I'm tending to maybe want to support something like this. I've been talking about this since we prioritized lead pipe, and I'm going to forget, and maybe Councilor Van Sickle can remind me once again what the backflow valve replacement was. But I'll put that aside for right now, and I want to ask some questions about Connect Superior specifically before I make my vote on whether or not to direct this money to lead line replacements, which I think is it's clear that the council supports that. So do we know where this, and I think you answered this question once before, but I'll ask it again. Where would this $1.5 million be spent within the Connect Superior budget?
That is dependent on the Connect Superior budget, which will be adopted later by this council, but most likely capital development. So the Connect Superior budget is mostly capital, obviously. It has a small operations budget for, I mean, we have one staff, we're hiring another. So that budget is fairly small. And this would go to some of that, but the vast majority is capital development. So expanding the program further out.
So do we have a timeline when we'll know the cost for each resident or what that cost will be to buy into the Connect Superior utility?
The actual cost to connect to, I don't know. Yeah, Ms. Becken, are you able to answer that? How close are we to a final decision on that? Obviously, that's a council decision.
That is a council decision, yes. So right now, our contracts
Can't
are...
quite hear you if you're trying to speak.
Okay, sorry, let me try this louder. How about now? Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So great question. Currently, our contracts are with the legal team out of Madison that specializes in utilities. So they are putting together the last touches on our ISP contracts. And once that is done, which they're anticipating within the next 2 weeks, I will be able to bring to council those ISP contracts along with the recommended rates for wholesale. And at that point, we will have something for our ISPs to be built on so that we'll know the consumer rate. At this point, Counselor, it looks like we are staying extremely close to what we projected in early days in like our different feasibility studies and things like that. Definitely staying very, very close to those while staying industry standard, which is very exciting.
So just to be clear then, because there was a bunch of different numbers on what the projections were, it was anywhere from $35 to $55 to $65. Where in that
Part of that is because there's different packages. You can choose different speeds, and there would even be I believe a low income eligibility.
Okay, so it's still within that original 35 to maybe 65 or above. Okay.
Yeah. Also recognizing that different ISPs can charge different rates. You know, we will have a base rate that we will charge to every customer, but the different ISPs compete with each other, and part of that is overprice.
Thank you. do we have any updates on the BEAD grant? Are we still eligible, or where is that funding at?
I do
for
have an update on that. Oops, sorry to talk over you. It's
Nope,
hard on
go ahead.
tongue.
Go ahead, Steph.
But yes, we, about a week ago, we got our approval for our letter of intent. So the city of Superior is now qualified and approved to apply for BEAD funding. So that was our major hurdle. We are recognized as a utility that is eligible to apply for the BEAD funding. Currently, I am working with the county and a few of the local entities that would be part of our application process. I've already secured multiple letters of support. Those all go towards making our application even better. And I've been working with the mapping teams to get our bids together for the sites that we can get BEAD funding for. So very positive news there.
I want to focus on, that is really positive, but I want to focus on that last part of what you said there, the areas in which we're eligible. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the FCC has their maps that show which areas are eligible for funding. So that continues to be the areas that are underserved, unserved, and our community anchor institutions. Those are the three priority spots. So within Superior, we do have pockets of unserved that are completely unserved. That'll be the first priority, underserved. And we also have an extensive, I want to say it's over 200 community anchor institutions that are also eligible. So within that, we are able to apply for not only the actual pass by of those addresses, we're also able to apply for the backbone cost to get there. So the PSC has been as honest and open as they can be without knowing what their funding actually is going to look like until all the maps are final. But those would be the things that we would be able to bid for and apply for the BEAD grant.
Okay, and are we currently in a phase where some of those areas that you talked about would help pay for this? So are we in phase one? Do some of those areas that you just talked about fall within that possible map?
So phase one is already nearly completed. So we're not applying for any BEAD money within phase one. That is already done. That's been taken care of ARPA. So BEAD funding is going to be coming up in future phases.
Gotcha.
There are a few that are adjacent, right? There are a few that are relatively close. And then there's some that all of us know way out in Kilner Bay. Those are long stretches. So those are going to be much more complicated to get there. That's why they haven't been served. But that's also the meaning of the BEAD funding, is to get that backbone there. That's that acknowledgement that, yes, those are hard to serve. So we need to support it in different ways. But those are the things we're looking at.
I'd like to elaborate on that point because it's important to understand how Connect Superior is likely to develop. Certainly I, and probably many of you, thought that we would start with phase one and grow from phase one, that the neighborhoods right next to the phase one neighborhood would be the next neighborhoods. That's not really true. It's not really the plan that they're looking at now. All the advice that we've gotten from our consultants in terms of design is that you start with a phase and then you shoot a backbone across to the city in multiple different directions, and you create pockets throughout the city of access, and then you are able to expand those as the program goes, so that no neighborhood, you're able to target the neighborhoods based on how you get your funding, of course, and based on need.
And that need would be the proposed maps that would be tied to this BEAD grant funding, right?
Well, we can determine whatever need we want as we develop it. But yes, when there's requirements for a grant, obviously you develop according to that grant. If BEAD's going to give us, I don't know, $5 million, well, obviously the neighborhood that it's going to fund is going to get prioritized pretty quickly.
I'm glad that you said that. So are we looking at expanding for phase two, whatever that area might be, prior to knowing like this $1.5 million? Is that getting us to the next phase, or is that continuing through phase one?
It gets us to the next phase. So in fact,
why wouldn't we then wait? Sorry to cut you off. I apologize.
Phase one is actually larger than phase one because it came in so under budget. And so this is about extending the next backbone out to the next neighborhood.
So we're looking at expanding something, not knowing the success of phase one.
Well, one, we have quite a bit of evidence predicting the success of phase one. The vast majority, keep in mind, the average take rate for new municipal broadband networks is 54%. We would be very successful at a much lower take rate than that. In fact, we could tolerate a Ms. Beckman would know the actual number, but where we start getting in the black on it, but it's well below 54%. Furthermore, we have survey data saying people want this, and we also, the networks that have underperformed that have almost always been in very competitive environments. There is no fiber network built out in Superior. There is no competition for Connect Superior. So we expect it to be successful. And by any measure of success that we already have, we've already been exceeding expectations, particularly in terms of cost.
But not take rate. We don't know how many people are going to buy into this. We don't know if it's going to be 54% of the residents in phase one. We don't know any of that.
All we have is the data of other folks that have done it.
Right. So I guess my hangup is that we are pushing forward a little too fast. And I get that the council has made this a priority and it's in the top 5, top 10 to continue forward with this. And I respect that I'm in the minority of that voice. And I feel like we're going a little bit too fast. We need to pump the brakes a little bit. I've been in support of almost every portion of this as I possibly can by asking tough questions, by getting all the information. I feel like we need to just slow down a little bit and wait until we get some more raw data instead of some predictable data with surveys and what other communities have done in order to push forward with this. I want to come back to the BEAD grant for just a little bit, and then I'll yield my time, the rest to let some other counselors talk here. But who else is going to be applying for the BEAD grant within the city of Superior? Do we know any? Are there any other?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep, I can respond to that. So there are some levels of the BEAD grant application that were very apparent, right? So there were some things that were very open to the public and some things that applicants were allowed to like blank out and considered proprietary. So when I put in our application for the city of Superior, I was not allowed to put how many addresses I was going to go for, or how many blocks I was going to go for. So that's across the board. So I cannot tell you exactly that. I can say that very few providers put in for Douglas County as a whole. And Douglas County as a whole, if you take a look at where the providers are falling, most of them are looking at those at county, out of the city space. In my talks with Douglas County, when I've been pursuing their endorsement for the BEAD grant, I've been told that so far we are the only entity that is pursuing their endorsement within the city of Superior limits. So they have received those requests, several requests by several providers out into the county areas, but not within the city. That we are the only ones asking for that at this time.
Okay. I'll yield the rest of and let other people talk for now.
As we go forward, because this is my proposal, it's my budget, I want to address the subject of why now and why not just wait for actual data to come in. Phase one is often considered a pilot. The biggest reason is, one, we want to start spending our ARPA money aggressively, and so we will get through that money much more quickly to make sure that it gets spent down so that we can build the largest possible network, which will we're making a very deliberate decision to not set aside ARPA money for 2 years worth of operations. So we do want to fund more operations. But the biggest reason by far is construction costs. Construction costs right now are much lower than we ever projected them to be. And so I don't think it's reasonable to expect that those costs will stay low, or especially we would never expect them to go down. And so any delay increases the long-term cost of the project. And so while we have this major opportunity of a local union company that is doing this much more affordably than we ever projected it could be done, it makes sense to hurry and meet this demand. Councilor Herrick, please.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I know. I had spoke with Stephanie earlier this afternoon and had the same questions that Councilor Fennessy and Councilor Johnson had. I was surprised at the amount that the original project was being able to be finished for. And so if we don't mind, if she could explain the difference of what it actually ended up costing us versus the additional money that we're able to use to go forward with this.
Steph, do you have the actual budget numbers?
Sure. So originally, originally we were looking at something like 2.6 million planned for the actual build out of phase 1, right? That was what our projected numbers when it first came together. It came in at about 1.4, and it is staying on budget. I have had very, very few change orders. If anything, it's been just tree protection, which is great because we like to protect trees, but we didn't know at the time that that would be a budget item. So this one did come in significantly lower. And a lot of that is because of at the time that these projections were made, we were looking at, industry struggles. We were looking at hard time getting equipment in. But right now, if anything, suppliers are ready and they are anticipating BEAD grant money as well. So right now is projected to be a very good time to be building before all that BEAD money hits and there's more pressure on the system. So right now is a good time. We are short of locking in rates, which we can't do right now because we don't have our next plans and all of that. We are looking at buying things and getting supplies at the 2025 rate, which will be different than 2026 once BEAD money hits and life is different. So it is sort of an opportune time right now.
Counselor Sweeney.
Let me ask this again for the first time. I've spoken to this at least 3 times. Do we have an off-ramp? Do we have a plan? Whatever we're going along, if we don't get the rates that we expect, are we just going to continue on to the next and the next? Where do we have any plans for an off-ramp to stop this if it doesn't work?
So when you first asked that question, Counselor, we had many off-ramps, but obviously as the program proceeds, we are running out of off-ramps. So at this point, we have invested millions of dollars. There is a network built in Superior, Wisconsin that, as your title coordinator, Becken, is explained, those homes are ready to be connected. The conduit is in the ground, the fiber is in the ground. And so our off-ramps now start to become more unpleasant, but not necessarily terrible. So, well, obviously, we want the program to be successful and to connect people and to be productive. The network has value, and it has value to anybody that chooses to operate it. So it is an option to sell it if we choose not to operate it anymore. But that is quickly becoming our last off-ramp. I mean, of course, the other being build no further.
I also want it to be a success. Okay. I hope it does. I wish would be a success beyond, but I also think it's prudent to plan prop ramps. And I realized when I talked about this before, we didn't do it. And maybe, are you telling me it's far down the road where there are few off ramps?
Every phase we build, it costs money, and this will this 1.5 million doesn't build an entire phase. It stretches a backbone into whichever direction we choose. Right now, we're looking at the north end, and if we expand that neighborhood, if we add another neighborhood there, at this point we would need to put more money or get another grant to expand the next neighborhood. But we'd have quite a bit of access, even where it's going now. I believe this phase would actually connect more people. I'm sorry, but the off-ramp just becomes a bit more unpleasant at that point. We're just selling more network, and you hope that you get a buyer.
I just think, Mr. Johnson's question is the core of what is the take rate? We don't know that. When would we know that for whatever? When are we going to have an idea who signs up for whatever geographic area is number one?
You're going to have some early information here before the end of winter. I think that might be a bit ambitious. Let's give the team to spring. But again, we're really just finalizing the setup of the overall program Connect Superior. Like I said, the network's in the ground. It's there. And I mean, I can see it at my house. And so as soon as it's ready, we'll know the initial take rate. But if you look in the original or our final master plan or feasibility study, you expect that take rate to change. So the first year's take rate, the first 6 months take rate is going to be very small. As then you continue to advertise it, word of mouth develops, you would expect that take rate to grow, and you probably hit where you're at within the first 5 years, and then it stabilizes. And then it just becomes a question of the market. Do we get competition? Or don't we really? That's going to be one of the biggest drivers.
Okay.
So just again, the first numbers here in 2025, and
You
then that will
said
develop.
the End of winter, are you saying into March then? Is that your estimate for the end of winter?
Ms. Becken, do you want to make a guess when the first customer turns on?
Oh my, that is an exciting question. So working with our drop, next week, council will be seeing several contracts coming through, including one for our maintenance and drop contractor. So already starting some preliminary work with them to try to get a few drops in yet this fall. As long as the ground is holding out, sirs and ladies, we are going to do our best to get the fiber as far as we can and to get some initial hookups as well. It's been described as hook up a few friendlies first to kind of work out all the kinks in the system as we are getting our equipment set up, as we're getting our processes set up. So spending a good portion of the winter working out all those kinks so that as soon as it is thawed, and I was talking to the contractor today and he's saying, April, that's if we have, a decent winter, that we'd be looking at starting boring and being able to get the drops in April. And I would love to have a huge stack. So before April, we will have registration open. We'll have signups open. We'll be making those workloads and those lists. So as soon as those drops can be put in, our contractor will be as busy as I can make them getting folks hooked up.
And we've had conversations about, should we be connecting with people sooner and saying that, hey, do you want to commit to signing up right now? The problem with that is when you tell folks, even when we have a price, that will probably be too soon. If you tell folks, hey, we're going to give you this ultra fast internet for this lower price, sign up now, and you don't want those folks waiting months and months before that connection actually happens. We want to advertise it when it's available.
Just one last comment.
Please.
My analogy then is we're opening up store number 2, store number 3, maybe store number 4, and we don't know what store number 1 is producing yet. And that's where I have a problem. Do I want it to succeed? Absolutely. I hope it's successful beyond its, but I have doubts. Thank you.
Councilor Grasky, sorry. Councilor Fennessy, I'm holding you back since you made the motion. Councilor
I'm
Grasky.
sorry. I didn't.
I just have a clarification. So it's not just residential though that can buy into this type of internet.
That's
Per
correct.
se. Okay. So if I'm thinking about phase 2, we generally have a large business community, and I'm thinking very highly about how much of the software and everything is not a hardwired program anymore. So it would be cost effective to businesses as well besides residents. I just wanted to clarify.
Coordinator Becken or even Councilor Elm might speak on this much more commonly, but my understanding is the gap in the commercial market for businesses is much, much larger. A fiber connection is very expensive for businesses. And that's to me, one of the most exciting things about this program is the economic development potential. Neither Duluth nor any community in the entire Twin Ports has anything close to the speeds that Connect Superior is going to be capable of offering. It's not that there's zero fiber in these communities, but there's no functional fiber for sale at anything close to an affordable rate anywhere in the Twin Ports. So in other words, the opportunity that we're looking at here is what you heard your consultants describe in those other communities where you had one that built out a fiber network and another didn't. It becomes, if a business is in Duluth, for example, and requires a high-speed internet connection, it's really economically impossible for them not to locate to Superior. It's a huge draw, and that's borne out in the evidence. You can actually see that in those places where a fiber community is next to a non-fiber community.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Muffin.
Thank you, President Grasky and Mayor Payne. That was what I wanted to touch on is this is economic development dollars here because the way that this supports small businesses and large businesses is just incredible because pretty much all software people are using now is subscription based. That means it's on the internet. And so you're constantly like trying to push data around. All your accounting is on the internet. Your graphic design stuff is all on the internet. Your HR software is on the internet. Your GIS software is on the internet. Your telehealth appointments. I work in a therapy office, and half my patients are telehealth appointments. It's on the internet, and all of these things. This is economic development dollars here, and so in addition to like helping individual families, this is huge for small business and large business support. But in addition, it's healthcare access, right? And so people that are unable to get to medical appointments or are waiting for long wait times to get an appointment scheduled can do telehealth. I don't know if anyone's used telehealth locally, but if you're not feeling well and you don't really want to go to the doctor's office and you don't want to wait in a lobby for an hour and a half, it's wonderful. You can just click on and you can get in right away and get all of your things done. And so for people who have difficulty with transportation or other issues, like this is healthcare access for them. And the same for education. This opens up a huge new realm of opportunity for people to access different forms of education from online schools and colleges and other areas. They can stay living in our community and they can go to Harvard if they want to, or whatever they want, like this is access for the future. And so it's a small price to pay to get people access in our community to everything. And I think it's totally worth it. So I'll be supporting keeping the money on Connect Superior.
Counselor Van Sickle.
Thank you. I just want to speak to the lead lines issue a bit because this came up last year, a transfer from Connect Superior to lead lines. And so after that conversation on the floor, I started working on lead lines. And you guys know that I've been working on that for a year now. And so I just want to at least give some context to the funding aspect without going too far into it. I think it's worth noting at least 2 points here. Fiber, internet, and the lead lines issue are both monopolies in this community, and we're discussing enormous public investment to get those corrected. And lead lines were banned from installation 5 decades ago. But as of today, it's if we look at this stormwater flood control program, it's about $6,000 per home. And on October 17th, we got the final data from the water utility. So 6% of the city of Superior is confirmed to have lead lines and 12% unknown. And regarding the utilities laterals, 37% of their infrastructure is confirmed for lead and 7% unknown, still on their side. Using that calculation and the map, the inventory that they provided, Director Janigo identified 13 on East 5th, which is the major street construction that we'll do next year. So we've already identified those connections in preparation for next year. So that would be about $78,000 for that investment. And the EPA just distributed $86 million to the state of Wisconsin. And while that's a complicated distribution in our case, I do want to point out, though, that the state of Wisconsin divides that money up into 2 buckets: the Safe Water Drinking Fund that we regularly access for residential, that we regularly access for projects now, but the 2 buckets are one for residential lead line replacement and one for the utility. So while this has been a long process in working through a dual application with the PSC and the utility earlier this year, and checking with Director Cirk, because East 5th has just been designated CDBG. So finding finding that as a funding source. Director Cirque confirmed that CDBG is appropriate for lead lines replacement as well. And of course, the final lead and copper rule of 2021 gives communities 10 years. So we are working to create a 10-year plan. And then we would be required, I think, to do 3 to 4% a year. So if the total is 6%, we would be required to do about 2 to 3% a year. So I guess I just want to say that these two utilities are not competing. They're both important. But we're working really hard to put all of the pieces together to make sure that we are in a place to receive the enormous amount of money that's out there to help communities get their lead lines replacement. And just thanks for everybody for bearing with me on that and being supportive and asking questions. And the residential side are lead service lines, and that would just be my only clarification. But that is still in process and underway. That work is still underway. So I'll be supporting the Connect Superior funding as well. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks. When will we see access for businesses? I heard a couple people talk about the importance of providing small businesses, large businesses, access to Connect Superior. When will we see that availability?
Great. Ms. Beck, I believe there are several businesses in phase one, correct?
There are several businesses in phase one. So along the university side of Tower Avenue, I apologize.
Okay.
I should know my directions.
South side.
That side has connectivity, and also Belknap. Several areas on Belknap have connectivity as well, and those would be also available for hookup as the residential are as well. So the ISPs have far more engagement with businesses just because they tend to be a little more complicated than your standard residential hookup. But the ISPs that we're working with, especially Duluthian, just at this point to name one because they do have a more business oriented side to their business plan. So it's definitely on our ISP radar for the ISPs we currently have and for future ISPs already looking at what it means to serve our small businesses as well as our large businesses.
Okay, so around the same timeline, I guess I should have known that businesses were in that phase one. I can't remember the map off the top of my head. So I guess that was my question there, but go ahead.
It's important to know, to remember, this motion does not relate to phase one. Phase one is funded. This motion relates to funding that would almost certainly go to phase two, the further development of it. And we have not formally decided on where that will go. So while we have strong recommendations from our IT department now and our consultants, that is a policy decision that you make. And so there's a lot of considerations that they're going to bring to the table, like connecting to the fiber hub that brings the internet in from Duluth, or reaching vulnerable communities. But connecting more businesses is also a viable policy consideration that will come later. This merely puts money in the bucket. How you shovel it out is something still to be decided.
Thanks. Can you help me remember how Connect Superior is organized? So does the decision-making process of Connect Superior, I'm kind of a visual person, I don't know why I'm holding my pen up, but does that go then to CIT? Is the CIT oversight? That's basically the board of directors for the utility?
Nope. The city council is definitely the board of directors.
Okay.
CIT is advisory, because while we do have councilors, Alm and Ludwig serve on that, it's a majority of industry experts and that give advice. They take the advice of the consultants and now the staff, and they are supposed to be your representatives to ask the kind of technical, more difficult questions you might not think of. They then make a recommendation to you, and then you throw that policy layer on. But all final decisions are made by the council, including the budget.
I appreciate that. I want to go back. Councillor Sweeney kind of stole my thunder here, but I'm going to use my analogy anyway. Construction costs alone being lower doesn't sell me on moving forward with more Connect Superior. It doesn't tell me if we're going to have success just because the Connect Superior costs of doing of construction is going low. I don't believe many businesses would think it's logical or smart to move on without knowing enough information. It would be like if you're starting a new business and based on social media feedback, that you build a second location, or based on your predictions that you're going to do well, that you're going to open a second location or expand your current footprint. So I just don't see enough information for us to move forward. And I'm really hesitant. I hope it's successful. I hear Councillor Van Sickle saying that there's money out there. I know we will get the money eventually, and we have time. So I don't want to support Connect Superior to move forward. I don't necessarily believe that the lead lines is the best alternative for that 1.5 million, but I'm going to support Councillor Fennessy on this because I don't know that putting money towards a project just because the cost of building out is cheaper at this time. Could we put, and this is a separate question, so you can tell me that this isn't prudent right now, but if we were to put this 1.5 million from Connect Superior somewhere else, let's say for bonding or something like that, we would cut that bonding, the $10 million bonding that we had line item for. We could move that really anywhere, right? It doesn't have to just be it.
This motion specifically moves it to lead lines. Right. That is, you can amend that, but that would require a motion and an affirmative vote.
Okay, I'll let this vote play out and then go from there.
Councilors, I want to confront as strong as I can the idea that we do not have enough information about Connect Superior or take rates. In fact, I would argue there has never in my time as mayor been a single question in front of this council that we have had more information about. We hired 2 different consultants. We spent tens of thousands of dollars on research. We surveyed the entire city with both online, and so there were multiple public meetings where the public came and told us what they cared about here. We looked at other cities. The idea that most cities that build networks fail is flatly false. It is not true. To find the kind of failures, we always get the letter from the industry lobbyists that say that these are boondoggles, that cities fail all the time. Look up those cities. I challenge you to look up those cities. You will find that they are either rife with competition with multiple fiber networks. Often they are not cities at all. They're huge rural counties that look nothing like Superior. Or my personal favorite was Provo, Utah, that was built in something like 2002 when everybody was on America Online and many people didn't even have computers in their homes. So many cities in the United States and across the world have built fiber networks. They are successful. Again, the average rate of all cities that have built fiber networks, the average take rate is 54%. That is a fact. That is, the cities that do this are successful because we know that because we checked. That the data is there, the facts are there. I know we don't know how many residents of Superior will actually sign up, but we all know it's not zero. There are people in this room that will sign up. We know that it is very likely to be cheaper than any competitor. There really is no competition for a fiber network because nobody really has access to a fiber network. We're offering a much better product, a necessary product that has been successful in almost every other place that it has been rolled out. And again, where it has not been successful, it's pretty easy to find the reason why. And you'll find that reason is not present in Superior. We have no competition here for the product that we're offering. The only competition is created by us. The competition exists on the network. So while I respect the disagreement of the councilors that are inclined to support this motion, I don't know what this city could have done to provide more information on this question. Further discussion. Councilor Fennessy, please.
It is actually very true that there have been many municipality-owned fiber networks that have failed. They've failed on many different levels, either a low take rate and then it just spirals out of control, or they have to continuously dump millions and millions and millions into it just to get to a level of profitability. So to say that it's not true that many municipality-owned fiber networks have failed is simply inaccurate. And did I hear you right that you said it's a 54% take rate for all municipal-owned fiber networks across the U.S.?
No, this is the average. It's an average take rate.
Across the U.S.?
Yeah, that's my understanding unless I looked it up, yeah.
So for every municipal-owned fiber network across the U.S., they pull an average take rate of 54%. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right.
Last I checked, yeah, the average take rate is 54% for networks within their first 5 years. Last time I looked it up.
Okay. I would just be very interested in seeing that, because there's been a couple questions here tonight, like we don't know the take rate. We don't know, any of that. We actually do know the take rate right now, and the current take rate is 0. It was this phase 1 was initially, if you remember, it was presented as I think the phrase was a pilot program or a test phase 1. Let's test the market. Let's do a pilot in this market. And now, before that pilot is either proven successful or unsuccessful, you're asking us to throw $1.5 million of local tax dollars at a project that hasn't generated a dollar of income, hasn't signed up a single subscriber. And for Ms. Becken, the question that I had is the number earlier. I just wanted clarification. The number that earlier that was thrown up, I think Councilor Johnson was, for the monthly rate, I think he said 35, 55, 65. Is that the end user cost, or is that the cost that we would charge, and then the ISP charges their fee, whatever that fee is on top of that?
Good question. So that is the wholesale. And so that would be what we charge the ISPs. And then looking at what industry standard is right now. So those very competitive on what other open access networks do. And we're seeing the number that ISP charge on top of it to be somewhere between $20 to $40, depending on the service level. So some areas you see it as low as $5 added to that base rate because it's very competitive, right? They do tend to compete each other down. And yep, and that's where it is right now. Have not seen many that are more than that higher rate. So they tend to be, and I know we can only say tend because I can't tell you what it will be in Superior because it's not there yet. But in open access and even in like incumbent sort of situations, they're matching or beating the current prices of the current providers slightly. So they might be lower by $5 or match them exactly.
Okay, so like right in the ballpark. I just wanted to clarify that even if this rolled out and was wildly successful, it wouldn't be $35 a month for for a homeowner. It's going to be pretty much the same price that like Charter is charging, or Brightspeed, or any of those. Is that fair to say?
It would be if it were exactly the same service, but we have to remember that there is not the same level of access when you are looking at those other providers. Fiber is different. It is up and down the same speeds. It is significantly less likely to glitch. It is significantly less likely to slow down when all the neighborhood kids are doing their homework or uploading something big. So we have to remember through all of this that we are not comparing apples to apples. Our apples are better. So if we can offer much better apples at extremely comparative rates, we're not quite doing that same, we're not quite comparing the same thing.
That's fair. Yeah. I want to switch gears to what I'm asking here is to put this towards the lead pipes. And Councilor Van Sickle indicated that the water in this community is monopoly, which is it absolutely is. There's no denying that, but that doesn't remove the reality that a homeowner may bear to bear the brunt of the cost of replacing their red line or their lead lines. The state's going to give us a number of years to for everyone to do it, but at some point they're going to replace it or force it. But wouldn't it be better if there's an effort there's a reason that they want to get rid of lead lines to safety issue, health, and if they're going to give us 10 years, wouldn't it be better if we were able to come alongside those homeowners and do it in 1 year instead of waiting for the grants? And the grants that you mentioned, that there might be some state grants. Those are only for municipal owned utility companies. Those don't apply to our community, and that's not the fault of the individual homeowner that might have this $6,000 cost. But if the main driver here is to let's put this 1.5 million into Connect Superior, is the lower construction costs. That's that's neat and all, but to me, and everyone up here has their own vote, but to me, the lower construction costs don't overshadow the residents who may be forced to replace their lead lines. And we can either allocate this 1.5 million for the residents who may be forced to replace their lead pipelines, or we can allocate 1.5 million to broadband homes that are deciding to bring that internet into their home.
Counselor Herrick.
Yeah, excuse me, just a thought. Yeah, I was kind of, when I seen this, 1.5 million going to Connect Superior, I guess I was surprised because I was, again, like a lot of us, we were going off the premises that phase one would be a trial period that you might say. And I understand all the construction costs, everything involved there. But personally, I was hoping that, phase one would basically tell us all, hey, this is a successful program, that we need to continue with a phase two. So, and again, without thinking about the lead pipe scenario, I can see that too. However, if there's money available, if we give this money for that particular need at this moment, not saying that it couldn't be there, that if money does become available, then I don't think we'd be eligible to receive that money because we already, cured the problem. But yeah, based on that, I don't know if we can, again, I don't know where the 1.5 million came up with as far as a figure. And then that's, one question, where the 1.5 million come from. And another question is, have we approached the county in investing in this project?
No, I have not asked the county to invest in this project. If you want me to, I will, but I have a guess at how I think that will go. However, it's far more likely to go the other direction. Namely, we're building a lot of infrastructure into this or the neighboring actual building that will help if they want to expand out into some of their near urbanized towns. So, we have a history of doing that. Our wastewater network goes out into what's that, Parkland, I think.
Yeah.
This would be potentially a base for them to expand further out, but I would be surprised if they made an investment into this network. In terms of where did the money come from? It's obviously it's a round number, and a lot of it is about the balancing of the overall budget. It's developed much the same way you see round numbers in almost every other line item in the CIP. It's a conversation about how far will this money get you. It was a recognition that this should be well funded. This was the fifth highest priority of the council, and so I saw a need to fund it fairly well, but also I wanted to make sure that it actually bought something, that it made a meaningful expansion of the network. It's not, and when I looked at the cost of phase one, that the construction cost was, I think she said 1.6, 1.8. This was as close to that as I could get, while keeping the budget in balance. So that's where the number came from. In terms of, does this threaten our eligibility for other grants? That I struggled to answer that about the climate justice grant at our last meeting, and I was stumbling over my words a lot, so I'm reluctant to really give an answer. I guess I just don't know about any given grant until I've seen the true eligibility of that grant. Oh, except you've made a point. We certainly would not be eligible if we already paid for it. If it's already done, then we're not applying for a grant.
Right. So is it possible, just throwing this out there, is it possible to put this amount in a contingency fund for now?
It's possible to do anything you like. This would put it in the Connect Superior Fund, which then is not spent, of course, until you approve the expenditures.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Van Sickle.
Thank you. I just want to add one point about lead lines, because when I talked to the utility about this, I think it's important to note that residents have to and are forced to pay for every single pipe that's replaced in the city. They always have been. And the utility will not help the residents then replace the lead lines. We, of course, recognize we have a duty to fill that gap, but like I said, the state has divided up the buckets. And for example, when Ashland got the money, their distribution covered 100% of the lead line replacement. And I think while Superior Water, Light, and Power is not eligible to receive public funds, I think that we are on a good path to either be reimbursed through the second residential bucket, or as I mentioned, CDBG is an eligible funding source as well.
Counselor Sweeney.
Jenny, I just want to ask you a question. This is what I think I heard you say, that Spirit Water Light's main lines is 37% are lead. Is that the figure you used? Their lines are 37%. Okay, thank you.
The question is whether, Counselor Elm.
When I wait long enough, enough stuff is fleshed out, so I don't have to say it. So anyways, I wanted to comment on Connect Superior a little bit. 9 out of 10 of the fastest broadband networks in the country are municipally or partner owned in that regard. And in terms of investing in the community, I know it's considered comparing about opening multiple stores in a community. Would you do that? Well, we have done our homework on this. We have got our pro forma. We know that most people use the internet, so the fact is we have the goals. This is the same conversation almost a year ago to this date. So I'm in support of adding this funding to make sure this is a success. We knew what the total cost of what this would be, and I'm in support of this. So thanks.
Further discussion. Counselor Grasky.
Sorry, I have a clarification question for Counselor Van Sickle, if that's okay. Those numbers that you had out earlier, what was the 6% again? Was that of residents or residential? So 6%, which we have an average of 1,100 homes in the city of Superior, like a roundabout. I'm just trying to percentage
More
that
like
in my brain.
16, 11,000 homes.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes, yes.
You should average 10,000 connections. 6% of that has been confirmed. The lead service line into the home has been confirmed. For that.
Okay, thank you.
And I can't remember if she answered on the mic. Earlier, Counselor Sweeney asked Counselor Van Sickle if Superior Water, Light, and Power had 37% lead lines. Counselor Van Sickle said that yes, they did.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Further discussion. Counselor Johnson, the conversation has gone on quite a bit. This would be your third time speaking.
This will be my last time, I promise.
Okay, is it an argument or is it a question?
Is
it a new argument?
No, it's the same. You had mentioned that since 1.5, this was a top 5 priority, and that you felt $1.5 million. Can you talk about what for public works? I was trying to look it up here and having a harder time. Public works equipment, vehicles, street improvements, parks improvements, police equipment and vehicles, all ranked higher above that. Have you funded those at the same level as Connect Superior in this budget?
Off the top of my head, I think most of them, I'd have to pull that up, but let's say streets improvements, for example, is funded much, much higher than this.
Have they increased at the same rate as what Connect Superior is increasing though?
It hasn't increased. This is the first investment of the CIP into Connect Superior. This is a new utility, so we are funding into municipal infrastructure. The streets improvements is funded at something like 1.4+ million a year, every year for 5 years, with no return whatsoever from the users of that infrastructure. As in, nobody pays to use any of the infrastructure that we're building with the general street maintenance, compared to Connect Superior, where the customers do pay for the usage of it long term. So 1.4 for 5 years. This is 1.5 for 5 years. There's no future funding every year.
Okay.
The CIP is a 5-year document.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Well, I've opened the door for Councilor Fernandez, is only your second, so please.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify that last comment about how the users will pay for the broadband. That's not true anymore, though. If we allocate 1.5 million in local tax dollars, everybody's going to be paying for that, whether they get it or not, whether they have access to it or not, whether they choose to take it or not. So that statement about how only the users are going to be paying for this is not correct at all. We're all going to be paying a portion of this, whether we use it or not.
Unless the long-term revenue exceeds the investment.
But that still doesn't, that today, 1.5 million, every resident in Superior is bearing the brunt of that. You know, some pie in the sky. I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about that, if this is wildly successful and we sign up 120% of the homes in Superior, yeah, we might be able to send some money back to back to the people who fronted this in the beginning. But that's pretty wild example.
No, again, it is the most likely scenario by all of the research, and it has been considerable research that we've put into it, and that shows that this is very likely to be in the black, as most municipal networks have been. But that's actually not the point I was making. The point I was making is, at its very worst, this is going to generate some revenue. There's going to be customers. Again, several people in this room will sign up. So even if it's operating deep in the red, my point is most other municipal infrastructure, namely our streets, our sidewalks, our parks, that operates 100% in the red. There's zero revenue that comes back from most city services. So the point is, this is a utility. It generates revenue. You want it to be productive, and we've done the work to make sure that it can be productive. That was the argument that I was making. The debate has been raging for 4 years whether this is going to be economically productive. I think we've put out as much information as we possibly can to make that point. Now we're just waiting to see.
I mean, earlier we were talking apples to apples, but I don't see how your example about the roads in correlation to the broadband are apples to apples, because we invested in Hammond Avenue for example, and it was recently reopened. Every resident in Superior has an opportunity to drive down Hammond and to enjoy it, or to walk down it, whatever. In this example, everyone in Superior is going to be responsible for a portion of this 1.5 million. But not every resident in Superior has an opportunity to take advantage of the system, of this utility. Yes, if it builds out, if it's wildly successful, if there's the take rate, if we get more ISPs, then maybe down the road they will be. But that's the correlation there isn't an accurate one.
Actually, I enthusiastically agree that we should provide the internet for free to every single citizen. I think we can afford to do that. I think we ought to do that. I just think I would not win that argument right now. I'm not even winning it among the staff. They get nervous when I propose that, but some cities do that. And some communities definitely do provide some level of internet service for free to all of their citizens, recognizing it's a public service. So I would be perfectly open to that debate. All I'm saying is I expect this to produce at least enough revenue to cover its expenses, which is a point that I forgot to make earlier about why now, why before we have numbers. Expanding the network expands the revenue of the network. It increases its viability. It increases its ability to be successful, because by expanding it geographically, we give ourselves more access to customers. For example, one of the proposed directions we are considering with this actual money that we're discussing now, again, not decided, but one of the proposed directions is to shoot straight north, connecting to a fiber hub in the far north end of Superior, but that would run it right past Central Flats and Onyx, connecting hundreds of customers onto the network. If they have access to free Wi-Fi right now, but there's only that's only ever going to perform so well. So if we get access to those customers that we know can afford it, that we know largely need it, many of those are remote workers, this could surge the network into the black. Again, it's speculation, but it's speculation based in the actual circumstances on the ground. Okay, any final discussion? This is an amendment. And I want to clarify the amendment, because I've heard supporters of Connect Superior say they're going to support this. So the amendment, do you want to read the actual amendment? Do you have it?
The motion to amend is to reduce 1.5 million from the Connect Superior line and create a new line item assisting homeowners with lead service lines replacement for 1.5 million.
So a yes vote will defund Connect Superior in this capital improvement plan and direct the money to lead service lines. A no vote will leave the budget as it is presented right now. Does everybody understand the motion? Councilor Sweeney?
Roll call, please.
We will, yes. Okay, any final discussion or questions on the motion? Everybody understands? Okay, we will proceed by roll call. Again, a yes vote supports the amendment, defunds Connect Superior, funds lead lines. A no vote leaves the budget as it is and makes no changes for now.
Ludwig. Herrick. Johnson. Grasky.
No.
Ledeen.
No.
Van Sickle. Moffett.
No.
Sweeney. Fennessy.
Yes.
Elm.
No.
There are 4 votes in favor, 6 votes against, and the amendment fails. The question is on the adoption of the entire budget book as it is currently presented. Again, I keep saying that so that I can remind you that there will be budgets added to it later. Sorry, Councilor Allen.
Since we've been talking about the capital improvement, we still have that $10 million bonding listed in the budget. Are we any further with the climate justice grant? Are we leaving this in here? Are we cutting this out?
That's up to you. We are no further with the climate justice grant. I'm hearing a lot that the EPA is going to try and move this money fairly quickly, but I haven't heard back from the EPA in the last 2 weeks. So it's up to your discretion whether to keep that in the budget or not.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the budget, Councilor Fennessy.
I'll make a motion to remove that $10 million line item of bonding, thus balancing the budget at the end to zero, the surplus to zero.
The motion is by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Herrick, to eliminate the $10 million bonding line item. If it is okay with the motion makers, I'm going to leave it at that because there actually is a small contingency after that, about $20,000. Okay, the motion is to eliminate the $10 million line item for general bonding. Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. That amendment passes. Question again is on the main motion to adopt the budgets. Councilor Fennessy.
I'd like to make one more motion, and it's going back to Connect Superior. But if we're gonna spend 1.5 million, I think the biggest hang up for what it sounds like for most of us is spending it next year with an unproven system. And so if this council wants to allocate 1.5 million to it, I would rather see that allocated, just shifted over 1 year. Everything stays the same, just that instead of allocating it for 2025, it would be 2026. So I'll make a motion to shift that 1.5 million from 2025 over to 2026.
Motion is by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Sweeney, to move the 1.5 million allocated to Connect Superior from 2025 to 2026. Is there discussion? Councilor Grassley.
Just to clarify, this line item of 1.5 million is projected for the next 5 years. So it'd be spent in over 5 years.
No, it's to be spent in 2025.
Okay.
When I made that point earlier, it's that there's no future spending. There's none allocated in the subsequent years for this, as opposed to say like general street maintenance, which has an allocation projected every single year. So that said, how it can be spent, what this would do is in 2025 on January 1, it would move it into the Connect Superior Fund and can be spent. It can be spent all right away, or it can be spent over several years. In fact, when you see the Connect Superior Fund, you're going to see a multi-year capital budget so they won't probably have all of their capital planned for 2025, but I don't know. I don't think I've seen that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Sweeney.
Could we have a roll call on this, please?
Yes. I should say I of course also oppose this motion. This funding, one of the main purposes of funding it in 2025 was to capture immediate construction costs before we start to see inflation. I think And of course, to connect more customers and begin bringing as much revenue onto the network as quickly as we possibly can. Councilor Herrick.
Yeah, just for clarification then, that we'd have to approve where this money is spent, correct, on this particular fund?
You must approve the budget for
Yeah,
Connect
right.
Superior, which is its own. Yes, that will be an independent vote. It will be just like this budget, and subject to amendments, subject to discussion. Yes.
So, and to approval where the money's spent, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The question is to amend moving Connect Superior funding from 2025 to 2026. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed by roll call. Yes moves the money to 26. No maintains the budget as it is.
Counselor Herrick.
Well, a yes vote moves this funding within the CIP until 2026, so we cannot transfer it to Connect Superior until 1 year later. A no vote keeps the budget as is, moves it to the Connect Superior Fund, and that was the question you asked, where we will then see the Connect Superior Fund in the coming weeks.
Counselor Johnson. Counselor Grasky.
No.
Counselor Ledeen. Counselor Van Sickle. Counselor Moffett.
No.
Counselor Sweeney. Counselor Fennessy.
Yes.
Counselor Elm.
No.
Counselor Ludwig.
There are 3 votes in favor, 7 against, and the amendment fails. Councilors, I should have said this much earlier in the meeting and every meeting. It might be a little frustrating. Could you cast your roll call votes into a mic? I'm trying to be cognizant that people watch this meeting after the fact, sometimes long after the fact, and it will help them know who voted in what way. Of course, it's in the minutes as well, but just makes it easier for somebody that watches these meetings for entertainment. The question is on the budget and further discussion. The question again is on adopting the general fund budget, the capital improvement plan. There are 3 utility budgets in this packet, economic development fund and some grants budgets in there. Any further discussion? And again, more budgets coming. You see a very long list of budgets at the upcoming Finance Committee meeting. Okay, then the question is on adopting the budget as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you, councilors.
All right, new business. Item 10.1, I'm recommending approval of miscellaneous licenses.
Motions by Councilor Johnson, second by Councilor Herrick. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Item 10.2, I'm recommending approval of a renewal Class B beer and Class B liquor license application for Superior Curling Club Incorporated located at 4700 Tower Avenue for a period beginning October 15th and ending on April 14th, 2025.
Motions by Councilor Fennessy, second by Councilor Grasky. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Thanks again to Councilor Moffett. This was also postponed. So I am going to now open the public hearing for the resolution resolution introduced by the Community Development Division to approve the 5th year action plan 2025, authorizing staff to submit plans to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Would anybody like to speak in this public hearing? Anybody like to speak to the Community Development Division plan? Would anybody like to speak in the public hearing? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the resolution. I'm looking for a motion to close the public hearing and approve the resolution. Councilor Johnson made the motion. Councilor Elm made the second to close the public hearing and approve a resolution. Councilor Moffett. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries. Would anybody like to speak in public? I'm sorry, Councilor Van Sickle. Would anybody like to speak in public comment? You'd like to speak in public comment. Okay. Councilor Van Sickle, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I apologize for not giving you a heads up, but I just want to I just want to thank Frog and Star for their work on the utility intervention on the rate case. I know that was an extraordinary amount of work, and I just want to recognize that and thank them for their work on that.
Thank you. Sir, would anybody else like to speak in public comment? Hearing none, we have no further business and we are adjourned. Thank you.